How's it going, Giants fans? Welcome back to Fireside Giants with your boys, Alex and Anthony. If you're investing in Willie Coin, a little bit of an intro from myself today. And listen, Giants, bye week. A little bit of information coming out. Giants brass, Joe Shane and Tim McDonald were at the Colorado game against Utah yesterday to see Shedeur Sanders, maybe even Travis Hunter. Obviously, Sanders is the headliner, the quarterback position we desperately need to overturn. And I don't know if you guys saw the video, but I heard someone yelling, some Giants fan in the stands in Colorado yelling at Joe Shane, get rid of Daniel Jones. Wasn't me that said it, although I'm thinking it. Somebody else was there yelling at him. Hopefully, they bench him once and for all. We don't have to see another snap and protect ourselves from the injury clause. But wanted to sit here and discuss Shedeur Sanders. This performance he had yesterday, really, really good performance. Now, first pass of the game, interception. Bounces back, looked really, really solid, showed his ability to improvise out of the pocket, escaped a couple times, made some nice throws. Obviously, the arm talent is there. You know, he can make those throws just on the flick of a wrist. Really great arm strength. I do think that this is a player that obviously we've talked about. We're going to continue to talk about extensively alongside Cam Ward, the top two quarterbacks in this draft class. But Anthony, looking at this game, you know, what did you see from Shedeur Sanders? Obviously, the Giants in full attendance. Joe Shane being there is a major, major kind of eye-opening situation where they've been scouting him, not just him, but their whole staff at practice, at games. They're getting every little bit of information and detail they can get about Sanders. You know, how do you feel about this right now? And obviously, how you do today, my friend?
I'm doing great, super excited. I'm going to Sunday Night Football tonight over in SoFi Stadium to see my Los Angeles Chargers take on the Cincinnati Bengals. So I'm really excited. It's been a great time over in Cali and can't wait for that. But talking about my New York Giants, I think what you said there, Alex, about Joe Shane scouting Shedeur Sanders is really the interesting part here. Like, we'll react to the game and we'll talk about the plays that he made. And obviously, I'm going to start and say the adversity, the battling through adversity that he showed was tremendous. To throw an interception on the first play of the game and to bounce back and play the way that he did throughout the rest of the game, tremendous. But circling back to what you said about Joe Shane doing the scouting, it's very interesting that not only have the Giants been sending scouts and front office executives to these Colorado games, but Joe Shane himself has personally attended 2 of these games. Now, that kind of reminds me of last season, Alex, when we were going through this whole thing about which quarterback are the Giants interested in. I remember Joe Shane personally attended several UNC games, and then we learned many months later that the Giants were desperately trying to trade up for Drake May. So what this seems to indicate to me is that Joe Shane has a personal interest in Shedeur Sanders. He likes him. That's Joe Shane's guy. Now, that's not to say that Brandon Brown's guy isn't Cam Ward and he's not going to be going to Miami games. But I mean, listen, it's very rare, Alex, that we hear a team goes to a college practice, not just to the games. It's one thing for Joe Shane and his executives to be going to game days, but the fact that they went behind the scenes to practice, and here's the kind of narrative that I want to build out of that, Alex. I think this is very interesting. Every time Shedeur Sanders and the Giants get brought up in the same sentence, there is a swarm of fans that say Deion Sanders will never let him go to the Giants. Then why did he let the Giants go to Colorado practice? What are you talking about? Clearly there's some sort of a rapport trying to be built. There's some sort of a relationship. If Deion Sanders opened his practice to the New York Giants scouting department, I think that tells you clearly and obviously that he is open to the idea of letting Shedeur Sanders go to the New York Giants. So I think everybody needs to put that narrative to rest and stop making things up because some random account on Twitter said something about Deion Sanders and Shedeur Sanders' personality. Okay, I think that we really need to just hold off on all that stuff and wait until we get to March and April, the scouting combine, all of that stuff. Then we'll know whether or not Shedeur Sanders is going to force him way off of teams. But right now it's all speculation, and what we need to be doing is focusing on how interested the Giants are in Shedeur and how well Shedeur Sanders is playing on a week-by-week basis because again, yesterday, Alex, I know that there were some plays that maybe were a little bit controversial in that game yesterday from Shedeur Sanders. Like, obviously, he threw the interception on his first throw of the game. You never want to see that. Later on, he had a 4th and 6 deep pass to Travis Hunter. First of all, Travis Hunter, otherworldly. He should be the Heisman Trophy winner. That guy is insane. I really wish that the Giants didn't have to draft a quarterback in this draft so that we could land Travis Hunter. But some of those plays, like, let's talk about that 4th and 6. Shedeur Sanders throws up a prayer. It's in double coverage. Travis Hunter comes down with it. Now, you immediately texted me and you were like, 10 out of 10 times, that's probably a pick in the NFL. And I was like, yeah, you're right, but 10 out of 10 times, that's a sack with Daniel Jones, because on 4th and 6, he doesn't even throw it up there. He holds onto the ball too long and takes the sack. Sanders, on the other hand, pressure in his face, throws it up and gives his best playmaker a chance. And I think we see that on a week-to-week basis. And so I'm kind of bringing this up, Alex, because I think a lot of fans always say Sanders plays with so much talent around him. He's got Travis Hunter, he's got this guy, he's got that guy. How can you really evaluate him? How do you expect him to succeed on a Giants team that doesn't have a lot of talent? And it's the fact that he knows where his talent is, and he gives those guys opportunities to make plays. Daniel Jones doesn't give Malik Neighbors enough opportunities. We say that every single week. But with Shedeur Sanders, that when he is back to pass, under center, dropping back, he's going to key in on where his best playmaker is, and he is going to get that ball to his best playmaker in the biggest moments. And I think that is something alone to appreciate. It's what we see Joe Burrow do on a week-to-week basis, Alex. We saw Jamar Chase explode for like 300 damn yards last week. And a lot of that was Joe Burrow's under pressure. F it, I know Jamar Chase is out there somewhere, let's throw it to him. We don't see Daniel Jones do that enough. We see Shedeur Sanders do that. So that's just kind of one of those traits that I think is controversial right now. The fact that he's a Travis Hunter merchant is what some people call him. I disagree. I think he does a great job of maximizing the talent and utilizing Travis Hunter's talents to his own abilities. So that's my initial take on Shedeur Sanders. But Alex, what are your thoughts on that? Just the fact that Sanders, maybe he is throwing it up in double coverage, but sometimes that's not necessarily a bad thing.
I mean, listen, at the very least, he's giving his guys a chance to make plays. And as you said, that's something that we have not seen with Daniel Jones. Before I further go into this, I want to give you guys a quick shout out from our sponsor, BetUS. Take a look at some of the lines that I like for this one. And today, or rather tomorrow, we have a pretty good matchup for Houston against the Dallas Cowboys, who literally are just dead in the water. They've benched Cooper Rush multiple times already. Like, he's basically a non-factor. And BetUS has his line at 173.5. I think I'm just going to have to take the under there. They can't throw the ball. Obviously, Houston's pass rush is phenomenal. They're probably going to blow them out, and I think that they end up just pulling most of their guys by the fourth quarter. So I do think that, Cooper Rush, I mean, he's not a good player. Let's be quite honest. 174 feels like it's too high even for him. I'm going to throw a little 10 spot on that. Return of 1880 minus 114. Nice little bet. Confirm that with the prop builder on BetUS with the fastest payouts in the industry. Really good option there. Obviously, you can use our code YouTube150 to get a 150% match on your first deposit up to $2,000. There's nobody else providing that type of bonus, so make sure to go check that out ASAP. But back to Shedeur Sanders. So there is one thing that I really like about Sanders, and it's his completion percentage. I mean, he has a 72.4% completion percentage, Anthony, an 82.2% adjusted completion percentage. He has 15 drops by his receivers on the year. They're dropping tons of passes, and he still has a monster adjusted completion rate and just a, 1.3% turnover-worthy play percentage. So, by the numbers, absolutely just incredibly accurate, really, really good at avoiding turnover-worthy plays. So he takes necessary risks like fourth down risks, or it's basically a punt. I can understand that. Obviously a lot of people corrected me a couple days ago. They have a problematic offensive line situation, but they do have elite receivers in Travis Hunter and a couple other really good options. So looking at his situation, I don't think he's the best athlete in the world. I think that he's a much better pocket passer than a guy that is able to, do stuff on the move. But he did show yesterday that ability to improvise and make those throws. I still think that Cam Ward is a lot better on the move. But in the pocket, when his pocket is clean, Sanders is really, really good. So I do think if you're the Giants, who have had perennial issues fixing this offensive line over the last 10 years, and you have a little bit of extra money to spend, you upgrade right guard. You still have Jermaine Illuminor. You get Andrew Thomas back. You have, John Runyon and John Michael Schmidt still, in the middle of their primes, if not just entering their primes. You can build an offensive line that can, maintain a pocket. I mean, before Andrew Thomas went down, Anthony, I saw Daniel Jones with the pocket every single week. He was operating from the pocket. Problem is, Daniel Jones can hit the freaking throws whether he's in the pocket or out of the pocket. Sanders is deadly accurate when the pocket is clean. He's very, very effective. The question is, when the pocket breaks down, can he make enough throws on the move? Can he do stuff out of the pocket? And he showed he could yesterday. I think he is athletically limited. I do think that his mobility is much worse than Cam Ward personally, but he likes to stand tall in the pocket. He will throw with pressure in his face, and I think that is a very, very strong attribute that he does have. So Sanders, as a pure pocket passer, I think probably is the best in the draft class. He's probably, right up there with Cam Ward in terms of arm talent. But I think Cam Ward's abilities off script are a lot better. Now, if he can, and not to say he's not a good pocket passer too, because he's very patient. He's able to stand tall and deliver those strikes with a much worse wide receiver core, but a better offensive line. So from what you saw, in the numbers, also what you saw from yesterday's game, Anthony, as a pure pocket passer, Sanders is obviously legit. If the Giants can build him a good offensive line and have him stand tall and deliver strikes, he might be the best quarterback in the draft class to accomplish that. What are your thoughts around that idea?
I think he's an excellent pocket passer, but I also don't want to discount his ability to maneuver inside and outside of the pocket. Like, I agree with you, he's not the best athlete. I don't think that he's a playmaker with his legs. He's no Jaden Daniels, and he's probably not even a Daniel Jones in that regard. Like, you're not going to send him on many quarterback keepers and expect him to pick up a lot of yardage with his legs or score a lot of touchdowns on the ground. However, when you really watch some of these clips from yesterday's game on the All-22, Alex, you get a better view of what the pocket looked like for him, and he was very good at maneuvering inside of the pocket to avoid pressure. And there were some plays where he extended the play well beyond where it should have gone. Like, numerous plays in yesterday's game versus Utah should have been a sack. He finds a way to escape. He finds a way to extend the play, and he finds a man downfield, and it continues to boost that incredible completion percentage that you mentioned and create some completions downfield. So I really do like his ability to extend plays. Now, again, it's not extending plays in the sense where he's getting out of the pocket and then picking up 40 yards on the ground with his legs. However, he is extending the play and then picking up 10 yards with a completion to the right hash after he made 3 guys miss in the pocket. So he is elusive in that regard. Not elusive as a runner, but elusive in the pocket. And I think that's arguably more important for quarterbacks at the NFL level. So there was a lot to really like from that game yesterday versus Utah. Again, some of those touchdowns, sure, he was throwing it up and they were 50-50 balls, but I like that he's giving his guys a chance. He's got good touch on those passes, making them ultra catchable. It's one thing to be throwing them in the vicinity of the receiver. It's another to be throwing just an easy to catch pass. And we've had that conversation many times, Alex, with Daniel Jones not having enough touch on his passes and just kind of beaming them in there. Very difficult to grab balls that should be caught but are dropped, but not easy catches. A lot of these catches that I'm seeing from these Colorado guys, easy to catch. They're just dropped right in the breadbasket. So much touch. They're hanging in the air for the perfect amount of time. That's what I like to see. So again, so much to be impressed by with Shedeur Sanders and the touch that he throws with and his ability to spread the ball around and pick up completions. But I also think another aspect of this that we need to, kind of bring up here, Alex, he's playing in a pro-style offense. Funny enough, it's Pat Shurmur, former New York Giants head coach, as his offensive coordinator at Colorado. That's something that we haven't brought up nearly enough on this channel. That's a huge bonus when you're scouting Colorado and their offense, and when you're scouting Shedeur Sanders. The fact that is a pro-style offense, and it's an offense that we've seen actually have some success for the New York Giants before, and we have a quarterback here who's playing in that offense and playing well in that offense, boosting his completion percentage, which again, we've seen that in Pat Shurmur offenses. The completion rate is usually high. Remember when he got the most out of Case Keenum and the Minnesota Vikings? Case Keenum was like setting records for his completion rate. So obviously that goes into Shedeur Sanders' stats. But I do think that when you're looking at Sanders and his ability to play in that pro-style offense, to move the ball around and spread it around and have such a high completion rate, he's being set up for perfect amount of success when he gets to the next level because of the offense that he's currently playing in. He's got good playmakers, he's got a good offensive line, and he's playing well in a pro system. All of those factors should attribute to a solid rookie season for Shedeur Sanders if he's drafted by the right organization. And we just hope that the New York Giants are the organization. If they do draft him, they have everything in place to make themselves the right organization. Need more playmakers, need better offensive line play, need Brian Dable to figure everything out. So a lot of factors at play, which again is why many are speculating that Shedeur won't want to go to the New York Giants. But I think at the end of the day, when you're Shedeur Sanders and you're Deion Primetime Sanders, man, where better to go than the Big Apple? Like, if you want to fix a franchise, turn it around and become a hero and continue the Hall of Fame bloodline, I think New York is the place to do that. So I don't necessarily think that the Sanders family, is anti-New York. I think that is a narrative that's being pushed way too soon. We'll get a more clear understanding of that later on in early next year. But for right now, I'm just excited looking at this prospect. And correction from an episode we did like a week or two ago, Alex, where I discussed Sanders. I said he was a 2-year starter. He's not. He's a 4-year starter. He played at Jackson State. He has all that experience. He literally does have all of those boxes checked to become an instant impact player next year. Played in a pro-style offense, played with a lot of playmakers around him, so he knows how to spread the ball, has a high completion rate, and has 4 years of starting experience. So I don't know. There is a lot to like with him. And yesterday's performance was a doozy. It was a great one. And Joe Shane was right there, up close and personal, getting heckled by fans to cut Daniel Jones while watching Shedeur Sanders, the next player to potentially take over after Daniel Jones, ball out versus Utah. It was awesome stuff. I loved it. I thought it was just an incredible performance. And, if I wasn't fully on the Shedeur Sanders train a week ago after yesterday's performance, well, I just might be.
I mean, listen, the discussion is going to turn pretty quickly at like when the combine comes around and stuff, like seeing how Dion, obviously Shedeur's father is impacting this situation. Does he want him to go to the Giants? Like, that's a genuine question we have to ask ourselves right now. Shedeur Sanders obviously extremely talented. Obviously, what he showed yesterday was that he can fight back initial adversity and bounce back and have a big performance. He can give his guys a chance to make plays. He had one beautiful throw layered over the middle over a linebacker's head. Pitch perfect. Pocket was clean. Dude's deadly accurate when he has time. And his arm talent, I mean, he's flick of the wrist, thing flies. Same with Cam Ward. So the question is Dion going to let him go to the Giants? The Giants obviously being a disaster. Their general manager is failing miserably to build this roster competently. They'll have a little bit of extra money to spend. Can they tell? And basically, this is not just a pitch. And you should be able to draft whoever you want, right? Like if you're a team and you're choosing 1, 2, 3, whatever, you should be able to take whoever you want. And that player has to play for your team, whether they like it or not. In this situation, do we know that's a fact? Do we know that Deion Sanders is going to, because he came out publicly and said, I'm not going to let him go to a team that's bad for him. You know what I mean? Is that a problem? Is that something the Giants have to be thinking about?
I don't think it's a problem. I think it's way too soon to be having this kind of speculation. And I think one point that I want to make, Alex, is this is a precedent, potential fathers getting involved and, changing where the son is going in the draft. This is a precedent set by Archie Manning and Eli Manning. And I always see people comment, I don't want this type of a headache in New York. I don't want an overly involved father. I don't want a quarterback whose dad is involved and is going to dictate where he goes. Guys, Eli Manning was the quarterback for 20 years, and his father was heavily involved every step of the way. That's how we got here. We got here with Shedeur because of Eli Manning. If there is an organization for this to work with, it is the New York Giants, because it's worked with us before. So I don't understand, like, what's the difference between Archie Manning dictating where Eli Manning is going and Deion Sanders dictating where Shedeur Sanders is going? What's the difference, guys? Somebody needs to explain it to me.
I think the difference is that it's all public now. Like, back then it was like there was no social media like that. It was all just it was public.
You got to go back and read the headlines that were written about Eli Manning. He's a privileged brat.
For sure.
Giants fans hated him because he forced his way onto the team.
But I will say this: these are totally different regimens. Totally different age. Yes. Like, Shedeur Sanders is on social media. We're talking about, can Joe Shane even build a competent team around him? Like, they ended up building a great team around Eli Manning, and he was Eli Manning. Eli Manning would make, in his prime, coming out of college, make Shedeur Sanders like a freaking high school player. These are two totally different prospects, right? Eli Manning had a leg to stand on in a monster draft class where all the quarterbacks hit in the first round, just Hall of Fame quarterbacks all over the place. He could sit there and be I want to go to this team because I'm Eli Manning and I'm going to be great. I don't know if Shedeur Sanders is going to be great in the NFL, because Deion Sanders was. He was playing totally different positions. So I think that, yeah, they're using the Eli Manning, kind of path. But from a prospect perspective, he had the talent to do that. I don't know if Sanders has the talent to say, I want to go here, this is where I want to go. I don't know if he's that good. Andrew Luck could have done that. He could have done that. But all I'm saying is, I just don't think that it's comparable from a talent perspective. I also think it's going to be a lot more public. I think that if things don't go the way they want it, and that they're not building the team the right way, it's going to get ugly. I'm not saying that these things are going to happen. They're just concerns that I have to have when your family and these guys are making decisions on behalf of you and helping you navigate these decisions. Like, that is something you have to think about. If you don't think about it, I think it's malpractice, personally. And it could have gone wrong with Eli Manning. It could have gone so wrong. We are so fortunate that it didn't. You know what I mean?
Ernie Accorsi, yes.
Yeah,
Ernie Accorsi
could have been really bad.
Maybe the greatest GM that the Giants have ever had for pulling that off and pulling off everything that he did to build that roster for Jerry Reese to find success. But no, like, you make good points. I get it. You have to consider it. It has to be in consideration. But more so what I'm saying is, well, actually, one of the things that you said, if things go south, it's going to get ugly. If Dion gets involved here, he's not going to just get involved on where Shedeur gets drafted and then it's hands off. He's going to make sure that it doesn't crash and burn. It's going to be a collaborative process going forward. Now, again, that might be too much. That might be something that fans aren't interested in, but I don't know. I think that, like I said, I think it's too soon to be having these conversations. I think that after the college football season, once Shedeur officially is declared and going to the NFL, then Deion Sanders is probably going to start speaking publicly in the media and we'll get a better understanding. But I mean, listen, the potential of Shedeur Sanders is literally off the charts. We are talking about a Hall of Fame bloodline here. Like, the potential absolutely is there for him to be that special of a player. And I think that all the way in November for Giants fans to already have declared that they don't want him on this team, it's way too soon for that. Let's let this college football process play out. Let's let the combine process play out. That's where we're going to get our answers for this. At the NFL Scouting Combine, we will get a lot of answers about which teams are going to be on this short list and which teams are not, and where he's going to go and where he's not going to go. Once we get to the combine, we'll start to figure that out. But, when the combine happens, Alex, Joe Schoen is going to sit down in a room and he's going to ask Shedeur Sanders all of these questions that we are wondering. How involved is your father going to be? Will your father let you play for this team? All of those questions will be answered straight from the horse's mouth to Joe Schoen. That's when we can start to worry about them. If during the combine we hear that Shedeur Sanders told the Giants, "I will refuse to play for you," then we need to be concerned and we need to hope that they don't draft him and they don't screw themselves. But at the end of the day, I don't think that's going to happen. I think that he's going to want to go to the Giants. I don't necessarily think that he's going to have this. You know what I think it was, Alex? I think he doesn't want to go to Cleveland or some other garbage ran organization with zero championship pedigree. I think that's what it was. I don't think that it's New York. Sure, the Giants haven't been ran well recently, but the ownership is stable. Everything is stable. It is a historic franchise, one of the greatest in sports, one of the most recognizable teams in the world. I don't think that the Giants were the team that were being referenced in terms of Shedeur Sanders maybe getting involved and preventing Shedeur from getting anywhere. So I don't know. I think that it's an overblown narrative at this point, but I absolutely think that it's something that we need to monitor as we get further in the draft process for sure.
It has to be, because it's not just about the player. It's about, Dion and his impact and what he brings to that equation. The worst case scenario is this, and this is kind of what I want to just end it on. If the Giants do not build properly around Shedeur Sanders and they fail to give him what he needs and they fail to help him succeed, and Dion steps in and is like, "You trade my son right now. Like, you have to trade him." The Giants are going to be the biggest laughingstock. Already are. They're going to be the biggest joke in football. Is John Mara going to let them run that risk? You know what I mean? Is John Mara going to let them run the risk of them becoming a complete joke, like actually damaging his legacy? I mean, it's already damaged because of the losing, but that's like no one's ever going to forget when the Giants were so bad and they failed so miserably that their quarterback's father stepped in and forced them to trade him. You know what I mean? Like, that's a genuine fear of mine, and I think that that's real. That's real because he's publicly saying, like, he has to go to a good position. He has to go to a place that they know what they're doing, and the Giants have shown that they do not know what they're doing. Right? Like, we're talking about instilling faith in Joe Schoen and Brian Dable to fix this, and they have shown no signs of being capable of fixing this. Every turn they've made the wrong decision. Every turn they've made decisions that counter what they should be doing. I mean, Daniel Jones starting still is a decision of itself that's like they don't know what's going on. The secondary is in shreds. They just cut, like, guys, we just went through an offseason where Nick McLeod was our starting corner the whole training camp, and he's not even on the freaking team anymore. And he was healthy. You know what I mean? Like, they failed miserably to address key position groups. Interior run defense, secondary, offensive line is still, it got much better, but zero depth. They can't develop players, right? Like, this is, we've seen them go through multiple rebuilds in 3 years, right? Like, they have rebuilt twice because they're turning coaching staff, so they're turning coaches over. They're replacing veterans. They're rebuilding their own roster at times, and like, I don't have faith that they can do the right job. They have to prove it to us. Like, until proven otherwise, I don't have faith in this team right now. And I think that's a pretty fair take because they've given us no reason to be optimistic. So I am scared of that situation where, like, I think Sanders is a great player. I think that he could be great. I think that, with the right situation, everything looks promising. I just don't know if the Giants are capable of doing it. So that is a concern of mine. I do think that that's realistic to wonder about. So, at the moment, I'm curious. I'm curious to see what happens. Now, I really hope that things improve. I really hope that Sanders is great. I hope if they go that direction, that they figure it out and they build around him. But until proven otherwise, I'm scared of the worst case scenario because it's been 6 years since we've started this podcast, Anthony, and all we've seen is worst case scenario. Why would that change now? Like, that is a fear of mine. You know what I mean? It is a fear of mine. Now, Daniel Jones has been the consistent variable throughout that entire course, but other things have been failing in the meantime as well. So I'm just scared as a Giants fan of the worst case, but sometimes you got to take risks. Then Cam Ward may not be there for us. Sanders may be the only option. It might be the only risk we have to take. It may be the only option, the only avenue. And if that's the case, they better damn get it right, man. They better freaking develop this kid. They better freaking provide him with everything he needs to be successful, because if they don't, they're going to be the biggest laughing stock in football once again in a couple of years.
They're already the biggest laughing stock in football, and you're right. If they screw this up, they will just continue to be. But no, I mean, listen, you make a lot of good points there, and I like the point that you made about you're afraid of the worst case scenario, and I understand that. And again, the Giants have experienced the worst case scenario over and over again recently. But at the same time, the worst case scenario could happen if they draft Cam Ward, could happen if they draft Garrett Nussmeier. It can happen with anything. So I'm just like, I get the added risk here, but I'm playing the risky game and I'm going for potential, because what the Giants haven't done over the past 6 years with Daniel Jones, they've refused to take the risky route and play for potential. They've just gotten complacent, decided that they were going to try and make it work with Daniel Jones. Screw that. Give me a guy who's going to transform this team. And you know what? If anybody has the serious potential to do so, it probably is Shedeur and Dion getting involved. That might transform this team. Like, Alex, low-key, we say that we want change and we want the organizational structure and we want the way this team operates and functions to change. Fundamentally, we want changes. Drafting Shedeur and getting Dion involved might be the way that we get that change. So that's my devil's advocate here. I get it. People are afraid. They don't want some outside voice getting too involved, and that makes complete and total sense. And again, something we will monitor throughout the draft process, and it's something we will consider. But at the same time, we are fans of a team that we want blown up. Like, we want it all to change. We want fundamental changes in that organization. Perhaps this is how we get them. So that's just what I'll leave you on. That's going to be my final take on it, Alex. But again, to round out all my points, I'm very excited about how much work the Giants have been doing on Shedeur Sanders and Colorado football, because he's not the only great player at Colorado right now. A lot of great talent there. So I'm very excited about that, and I'm also just excited about Shedeur. I think he is a tremendous talent. The more that I watch him, the more that I like him. I love his ability to maneuver in the pocket, and I like that he gives his playmakers opportunities to make plays, extends plays, plays well from the pocket. All of those traits that are translatable to the NFL, he has them. So I'm very excited. I'm happy that we got to sit down and talk about Shedeur today, but I'll let you close us out so that we can keep pumping the value of Willie Coin.
Willie Coin is at an all-time low right now, so get it while it's cheap. But I'll tell you what, the Giants have positioned themselves where they don't have a choice. They have to take the risk, whether it's Sanders, whether it's Ward. They have to go in the direction of a quarterback. So, they're going to have to get this right. Joe Shane's legacy, Brian Dable's legacy depends on this decision. So they're going to do every ounce of evaluation, of scouting. They've sent all their scouts, top brass. Like, I think Brian Dable might be the only one that hasn't seen him, and I think the rest of them have. So, they're gathering every little bit of information to determine whether or not this is the right player for them, and they should get it right? Like, with all the information they're pouring in, all the resources they're pouring into evaluating these quarterbacks, they should get it right. Obviously, it's still a crapshoot, but they know how they should know how to build around, and I think Dable does a really good job hiding weaknesses from players. He's done it with Daniel Jones. The problem is he has a freaking ton of weaknesses, so you can't hide all of them. I think Sanders has a lot more strengths than Daniel Jones. I think from an arm talent perspective, throwing outside the numbers, throwing across the middle, his ability to improvise, his feel in the pocket, he's very much matured in a lot of those ways. He plays in a pro-style offense, has a lot of experience. He can probably step in and be an NFL quarterback, at least, a developmental one on day one and play. And then it's Brian Dable's job to help him maximize the talent on the roster. If you're Shedeur Sanders and you go from Travis Hunter to Malik Neighbors, you can't do much worse. You know what I mean? Or much better than that. You can't really do much better than that. Like, that's going from a 1A option to a 1A option in the NFL. Like, plus you have some really good playmakers, Tyrone Tracy. I think Theo Johnson's improving. I love Wandale, even though he has some drops every now and then. Wouldn't be surprised if the Giants went out and found themselves another wide receiver. There's plenty of talent out there. Like, they can build a competent offense. They just have to get the right pieces in place. So hopefully they make the right decision. Obviously, we'll do far more evaluation, and we'll look at some of what he's done recently in the coming weeks, kind of just hoping to see both Cam Ward and Sanders get to the playoffs so that we can see them go up against legitimate competition. Utah had a really good defense, and Sanders completely shredded them alive. So really, really, really encouraging performance there. We'll kind of judge things as it happens and get back to you guys as we see more of the film and more of the kind of situations unfold. But as always, my friends, happy to hear your thoughts and observations in the YouTube comment section. Make sure to like and subscribe as always, and shout out to our sponsor BetUS, and we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Giants episode.
Perfect.